Hey guys, Coach Edwards here with lacrossegoalietips.com and lacrossegoalieuniversity.com. I hope you enjoyed last week's video, and I hope you headed over to athletespecific.com/ANT-download and got the Athlete's Guide to Mastering Automatic Negative Thoughts. All right, hey, this week I want to talk about, I got a question from Joel, one of our dads. He's also in our Facebook community creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future. So last week I mentioned stick skills, and I mentioned the 100 Fake Challenge, which is basically a lacrosse goalie every day taking their stick and working on just a fake. Not wall ball, but just taking a ball in your stick and faking like you're going to make a pass and back and forth, doing 100 of those every day. But there's a progression to that. And so what I recommend you start with is a short stick and maybe a tennis ball. Maybe that's all you've got to do 100 unbroken, right? And then now you add the lacrosse ball to a short stick and you're doing 100 unbroken, because there's a difference in weight between the tennis ball and lacrosse ball. You can also take a tennis ball, cut it like basically in like a third of it, and fill it with sand or pennies or BBs or what have you, and then tape it up, make that heavy, and then fake that. Then maybe you get to a goalie stick, right? And you're using a tennis ball with the goalie stick. So Joel asked, do I recommend a power shaft, which is a brand of shaft, or a weighted stick for the fake drills? And so just like I started explaining here, really it all comes down to progression. But I'll share with you a story. In my Olympic career, I worked with a strength and conditioning coach, brilliant guy, and he had a book that I read called Thrown Free. And it's about an East German discus thrower. And in that, so the East Germans were, back then, it's communist country, right? So there's East Germany and West Germany, and the East Germans were communists, kind of like the Russians were. But they had this amazing sports system, and they threw millions of dollars back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the early 90s into sport. And so they got a lot of science, a lot of research. And one thing they realized, especially in track and field events, was that, you know, whether it was the shot put, the discus, the javelin, or the hammer throw, these were implements that you were trying to move as quickly as possible, right? But what they found was the idea wasn't to just weight up, like, you know, to take a 5-pound implement and make it a 10-pound implement or a 20-pound implement. It was more like taking a 5-pound implement and adding like ounces to it. So what a lot of people do with the lacrosse stick is they think, well, oh, heavier is better. No, heavier is not necessarily better, but microdosing the weight that you add to it can help. So the other thing to consider here is balance point. So when a goalie's learning to move the stick and step in front of the ball, what happens is that stick, every stick has a balance point depending on the mesh in the pocket and the length and the weight of the shaft, right? So if the shaft is made of titanium, you're going to get one balance point. If it's carbon fiber, you're going to get another balance point. If it's aluminum, you're going to get another balance point. If you've got like 2 shooting strings in your stick, that's going to give you one bit of weight on the head end of the stick. If you've got 12 shooting strings, which you shouldn't, but if you do because you think you're cool but you're not, then it's going to weight the head. So it's going to change the balance point. And you can see where the balance point is by basically just taking your finger and balancing it and basically balancing the stick across it, and you'll see. So what happens there is wherever the balance point is, that allows the stick to rotate in a certain way. And if you make the shaft end long or heavy, well, it's going to shift the balance point, and then the rotation of the stick is going to change. All right. The other thing to consider is when we are moving to the ball, or moving in front of the ball, there is a load and there's a force that we're applying to the stick. So if we just make the stick heavy, now the tension on our body is going down, and so the muscles, basically, we're getting super technical here. The muscles in the top of your delts, your delts, basically the fibers that are pointing up, are the ones getting the work. Well, if I need to explode to my off stick, like let's say it's my off stick hip, well, that move is from my core and across my chest, right? So it's a different tension. So just adding a ton of weight isn't the answer. But if you go to your local fishing store. You go to Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops or Dick's Sporting Goods, and you hit the fishing department, you can get lead weights, and you can add them you could tape them to the side of the stick and to the shaft, maintaining that balance point, but just adding a little bit of resistance. We're not trying to add a lot of resistance. We're just trying to add a little bit to basically just challenge the goalie a little bit. But that's okay if the goalie is ready for that. Like, so for my parents watching this, if I took you into the gym and I said, all right, I want you to bench press 225 and you can only bench press 135, well, you're going to get pinned by that. It's not going to be good. But if I say, all right, you can let's say your best bench is 135 pounds. Well, if we take 50% of that, all right, what is that? Let's say it's just easy math. Let's say it's 65 pounds, right? 67 and a half pounds. We're going to move that as quickly as you can. So you're going to move that 10 times as quickly as you can. Boom, 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 right? Well, now, if I want to challenge you, I'm going to add a tiny amount of weight so that we can maintain that speed, right? So what happens is when we get too much speed, too much weight on the bar, and we try to move it quickly, the speed of the bar changes, and then we're no longer basically taxing our body like we want it to. All right. So it's a little bit too technical, I get it, but I hope you stay with me. So if you're going to weight the stick, just weight it a little bit, but that's only if the goalie is ready. With a lot of young goalies and new goalies and some of my female goalies, right, they don't have the strength to move the stick itself fast enough. So weighting it is not the answer. It's putting a short stick in their hands so they can move quicker, okay? And then getting their hips and whatnot stronger, okay? So, but Joel, that's a great question. So that came out of our Facebook group at Creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future. So if you're not a member, head on over and answer the 3 questions and apply, and we'll get you approved in there. But I'm happy to see it because every Wednesday at 3:30, I do Facebook Lives right from that group. Okay, so thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Next week, we got a good question actually for next week's video already. But if you've got a question for me, you can email me, coachedwards@athletespecific.com. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube or on our website, do me a favor and like the video, share it, subscribe it if you would. And also, if you're on iTunes, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I put original content on iTunes. I do extra podcasts and things like that that you won't just see on the YouTube channel or on the blog. So be sure you subscribe over there. And listen, every week I put out new content as well as in our private Facebook group at Creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future. All the links to all the resources I talked about today will be in the show notes below. So if you're on your phone on iTunes, you'll be able to link to them there, as well as if you're on the blog or on YouTube, you'll see them there as well. If you got a question for me, feel free to email me, coachedwards@lacrossegoalietips.com, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.